The 80s was a decade of magic, when Christmas morning felt like pure wonder. The lights glowed brighter, the air smelled of pine and excitement, and every toy beneath the tree held the promise of adventure. Back then, toys were more than plastic. They were dreams come to life. Saturday morning heroes became action figures, and commercials turned into wish lists. Every gift carried a story, every box a world waiting to open. These are the toys that defined a generation, the ones every 1980s kid hoped to find under the tree on Christmas morning. Cabbage Patch Kids were more than dolls. They were a phenomenon. Each one came with a name, a birth certificate, and a promise that you were adopting a new friend. They were soft, round, and full of personality, each face slightly different, making every child feel like theirs was one of a kind. Parents lined up outside stores for hours, hoping to find just one left on the shelf before Christmas morning. For a generation of kids, unwrapping that box meant holding love in yarn and fabric form. They were hugged, dressed, and carried everywhere, becoming part of every childhood adventure. No one forgot the moment they looked into those wide, chubby faces for the first time. But as the dolls filled bedrooms across the country, another toy was twisting minds and testing patience. A tiny cube of color that became a global obsession. The Rubik's Cube looked simple, but it was a puzzle that could drive anyone mad. 6 colors, 54 squares, and endless combinations. A toy that turned frustration into fascination. Kids twisted and turned it for hours, determined to line up every side perfectly, often peeling off stickers when no one was watching. The cube became a symbol of challenge, intelligence, and persistence. It sat on desks, school bags, and coffee tables, daring anyone to solve it. It was more than a puzzle. It was a test of patience and pride. Solving it felt like conquering the universe, one square at a time. But for those who preferred their puzzles to come alive, there was another toy that could transform itself entirely, turning from machine to hero in a matter of seconds. Transformers were not just toys, they were legends in disguise. Each one hid a secret identity. Cars, jets, or trucks that folded, twisted, and clicked into towering robots. Kids would spend hours mastering every transformation, their imaginations exploding with battles between Autobots and Decepticons. The clacking sound of plastic joints became the soundtrack of playtime. Every figure carried its own story, its own courage, and for many, its own broken limb from too much excitement. Transformers taught an entire generation that strength could hide in plain sight. They were innovation, storytelling, and creativity rolled into one. And while the robots waged their epic wars, another hero was rising. One with muscles, magic swords, and the power of Grayskull. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe ruled the toy aisles like no other. With their broad chests, battle armor, and bright colors, these figures brought Saturday morning cartoons to life. He-Man stood for courage and good, while Skeletor embodied every childhood fear. The battles that played out on bedroom floors were loud, wild, and full of imagination. Kids collected castles, beasts, and vehicles to expand their kingdoms, turning simple toys into epic adventures. The power was real, not in muscle, but in creativity. Every child who raised a plastic sword believed they could save Eternia. But while He-Man fought evil in faraway worlds, another icon of the 80s ruled the home. And she did it in pink heels and a dreamhouse fit for a queen. Barbie's dreamhouse was the symbol of imagination, style, and luxury in miniature. With pink walls, elegant furniture, and endless accessories, it was more than a toy. It was a universe of possibility. Kids decorated every room, planned stories, and gave Barbie a life that reflected their dreams. She could be a doctor, a pilot, or a superstar, all within the pastel walls of her 3-story mansion. Every drawer opened, every window told a story. The dream house was not about perfection. It was about creation, about making the world just as you imagined it. For many, Barbie's house was the first place where fantasy met design and imagination learned to live indoors. But for those who preferred a touch of magic and color with their playtime, the next toy brought entire rainbows galloping into their lives. My Little Pony was a world of pastel magic. Each pony had its own color, symbol, and personality, with names that sounded like dreams, cotton candy, firefly, and twilight. Their manes shimmered, their tails glowed, and their gentle faces seemed to come straight from a storybook. Kids brushed their hair, traded them with friends, and created entire fantasy lands where friendship ruled above all else. My Little Pony was more than a toy. It was a feeling, soft, kind, and full of heart. It taught that magic did not have to come from power, but from care. Every little pony carried love in its tiny plastic hooves. But when it came to battles, another set of heroes stood ready. Soldiers who fought not for fantasy, but for freedom. G.I. Joe was the definition of action. These figures were not just toys. They were warriors in the hands of every kid with a backyard. Each soldier had a code name, a mission, and a story. The vehicles, bases, and weapons turned ordinary afternoons into epic wars between good and evil. G.I. Joe made courage tangible, small enough to fit in your hand, big enough to inspire a generation. It was teamwork, bravery, and imagination molded into plastic. And as battles raged across living room floors, a new kind of war began. One fought not with soldiers, but with pixels and controllers. The Nintendo Entertainment System changed everything. When kids unwrapped that gray console on Christmas morning, the world suddenly opened into pixels and possibilities. Super Mario, Zelda, and Duck Hunt became household names, turning television screens into playgrounds. The sounds, the jump, the coin, the victory tune became part of childhood itself. It was magic you could control, a universe that responded to your touch. Families gathered around the television not to watch, but to play. The Nintendo was not just a console, it was a portal into imagination, competition, and pure joy. And for those who had started gaming a little earlier, there was one machine that had already paved the way for it all. The Atari 2600 was the beginning of everything. Long before online leaderboards or 3D graphics, there was the flicker of a television screen and the hum of a cartridge sliding into place. Games like Pong, Asteroids, and Space Invaders introduced kids to digital adventure for the first time. The joystick felt like power itself, simple, direct, and thrilling. The Atari 2600 was a revolution hidden inside a wooden console. It taught the world that entertainment could live in circuits, not just stories. Those glowing pixels were the foundation of gaming as we know it. And when kids finally looked away from their screens, they often turned to a toy that seemed to come alive, one that spoke, blinked, and told stories all on its own. Teddy Ruxpin was more than a toy. He was a friend. With his soft fur and moving mouth, he told stories that made bedtime feel safe and magical. You inserted a cassette into his back, pressed play, and suddenly, his eyes came to life. He spoke with warmth, as if he truly saw you. Kids whispered secrets to him, hugged him tightly, and believed every word he said. Teddy Ruxpin was comfort in a box, the kind of toy that made you feel less alone. His voice became part of countless childhood nights, soft and steady like a lullaby. But when the lights went out, another kind of toy brought color back into the dark, one that turned simple bulbs into glowing art. My Little Pony was pure imagination in pastel colors. Each one had a name, a story, and a personality that felt alive. Their soft manes shimmered like ribbons, their tails curled perfectly, and their cutie marks told you who they were meant to be. Kids brushed their hair for hours, lined them up on shelves, and created entire adventures where friendship and kindness ruled. My Little Pony was gentle magic, a world where joy came from care, not conquest. It was about color, comfort, and connection, wrapped in soft plastic and childhood wonder. Teddy Ruxpin was more than a toy. He was a storyteller, a friend, and a voice that made bedtime feel safe. You placed a cassette in his back, and suddenly his eyes moved, his mouth spoke, and his stories filled the room. Kids believed he was alive, and in a way, he was. His words carried warmth, teaching lessons of kindness and wonder. For many, Teddy's soft voice became part of their childhood rhythm, a lullaby wrapped in fur. He was comfort made real, proof that magic did not need batteries or spells, just a story well told. Lite-Brite turned darkness into art, a simple black screen, a handful of glowing pegs, and endless imagination. Kids would sit for hours pressing tiny colored lights into the holes, creating stars, hearts, and their favorite cartoon characters. When the lamp behind the screen lit up, those simple dots came alive, a masterpiece glowing in the dark. It was peaceful, creative, and full of wonder. Lite-Brite wasn't about competition or noise. It was about patience and pride. It made every child feel like an artist, lighting up not just the room, but the imagination that built it. The Easy Bake Oven made childhood taste like sugar and joy. It was small, pink, and powered by a light bulb that somehow turned batter into cake. The smell of brownies and cookies drifted through bedrooms, filling the air with sweetness and pride. Kids measured ingredients carefully, pretending to host their own cooking shows. Every little cake felt like a triumph, made with patience, curiosity, and a dash of make-believe. The Easy Bake Oven wasn't just a toy. It was the first taste of independence, a way for kids to create something real, something all their own. Care Bears were kindness turned into color. Each bear wore its heart on its belly, literally. Cheer Bear, Grumpy Bear, Tenderheart. Each one represented a feeling, teaching children that emotions were something to be embraced, not hidden. Their soft fur and warm smiles made them more than toys. They were comfort on difficult days and company on lonely nights. Care Bears reminded kids that caring was powerful and that love could heal just about anything. Every hug from a Care Bear carried a bit of that message, that simple, timeless belief in the power of sharing your heart. Star Wars action figures brought galaxies into living rooms. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Princess Leia, tiny heroes and villains that carried the weight of entire worlds in their plastic forms. Kids recreated epic battles on the carpet, complete with whooshing lightsaber sounds and spaceship noises made by their own voices. These figures were more than collectibles. They were keys to imagination. Each one held a piece of a universe that shaped a generation. Star Wars toys taught children how to dream big, to believe in the Force, in adventure, and in the hero that lives inside everyone. Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars made speed something you could hold. Each car gleamed like treasure, metallic paint, shiny wheels, and endless personality. Kids built tracks across bedrooms, through hallways and down staircases, racing for glory and fun. There were crashes, loops, and wild cheers as cars flew through plastic ramps and soared into imagination. They were simple toys, yet they made every child feel like an engineer, a racer, and a dreamer. Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars weren't just vehicles. They were symbols of freedom, proof that even the smallest engines could ignite the biggest adventures. The Etch A Sketch was pure creativity inside a red frame. Two white knobs controlled a single gray line that could become anything: a house, a name, a dream. It taught patience, focus, and imagination in its simplest form. Mistakes could not be erased. You had to start over, shake it clean, and try again. That moment, the gentle rattling sound of fresh possibility, became part of the joy. Every drawing, no matter how crooked, felt like art. The Etch A Sketch reminded kids that magic did not need color or screens. It only needed imagination and the courage to keep creating after every shake. The Speak and Spell was the voice of the future. Its orange plastic body and robotic tone made learning feel like science fiction. Children typed words, listened and repeated, learning spelling through sound, not just sight. The electronic voice became oddly comforting, a partner in curiosity. It was more than an educational toy. It was a glimpse into a digital world that was still decades away. Speak and Spell was proof that knowledge could be fun, and that even a small machine could make learning feel alive. It spoke to an entire generation, literally. The Big Wheel Trike was freedom on 3 wheels. Its oversized front tire, bright colors, and low seat made every ride an adventure. Kids raced down driveways, spun out on sidewalks, and laughed until their legs ached. The big wheel was loud, clunky, and perfect. It gave every child a taste of independence, the first feeling of going fast without help. No one cared about speed or control. It was all about the wind in your hair and the world rushing by in a blur of color. For many, that first big wheel ride was the beginning of everything: movement, freedom, and joy. Pound puppies were love you could hold. Each one came with droopy eyes, soft fur, and a tiny adoption certificate that made you feel like you were rescuing a real pet. Kids tucked them into cardboard kennels, named them, and carried them everywhere. They were quiet companions who never complained, always listened, and somehow made you feel understood. Pound puppies taught gentleness, responsibility, and care in the simplest way. They were more than stuffed animals. They were friends waiting to be loved, and they reminded children that every heart deserves a home. Simon was the game that tested memory and rhythm. 4 glowing buttons, red, blue, green, and yellow. Each played a note, challenging players to repeat the sequence. It started slow, then grew faster, brighter, louder. The pressure built, the lights blurred, and one missed note meant starting over. It was simple but hypnotic, a perfect balance of focus and fun. Simon taught concentration and rhythm before anyone had smartphones or screens to distract them. It was a toy that made thinking feel thrilling. For countless 80s kids, that sequence of lights became more than a game. It was a pulse of childhood, glowing in the dark like a memory that never fades. The 1980s was pure imagination. Every toy beneath the tree carried hope, excitement, and stories waiting to unfold. Back then, joy didn't need screens. It lived in simple things, from dolls to puzzles to plastic heroes. Those toys taught us to dream and create, leaving memories that still sparkle today. Television in the 90s had warmth. Sitcoms and family shows were more than entertainment. They were reflections of life. Home Improvement, Full House, Family Matters, and Boy Meets World filled living rooms with laughter, lessons, and love. You did not binge watch. You waited all week for the next episode. The theme songs became part of your memory, their melodies tied to moments of comfort. Families gathered around the screen together, not out of habit, but tradition. Every story carried heart, humor, and hope. The jokes were clean, the messages sincere, and the characters felt like family. It was a time when television brought people closer instead of pulling them apart. And while the screen glowed with kindness, another sound ruled the airwaves, a wave of pop music that defined the soundtrack of an entire generation. Waterbeds were the future, or so people thought. The idea sounded luxurious. Sleep on a mattress filled with water that perfectly molded to your body. Reality, however, was less relaxing. The first time you rolled over, the waves would toss you right back. Couples described trying to sleep as surfing while unconscious. Getting into one required balance. Getting out required strength. And if you ever sprung a leak, it meant an instant disaster. Still, owning a waterbed made you feel trendy and a little rebellious. They came with wooden frames, mirrors, and sometimes even built-in heaters. It was a symbol of status and a test of patience. People bragged about them, but most quietly went back to regular mattresses within a year. The 1970s had plenty of weird design choices, but none were as proudly displayed as those made of knotted rope and beads. That is right, macramé was everywhere. Home videos captured life before filters existed. Someone's dad always had the camcorder on his shoulder, documenting birthdays, holidays, and moments that seemed ordinary then, but feel priceless now. You can almost hear the soft hum of the tape, the zoom that was never quite steady, the laughter that came from behind the camera. Watching those grainy clips today feels like opening a time capsule. There were no retakes, no edits, no perfect lighting, just life as it happened. Every giggle, stumble, and inside joke lived on tape, and when the camera clicked off, memories continued in photos that needed time, patience, and a little magic to appear. Film cameras taught patience. You had only 24 chances to capture something special, so you made every click count. There was no instant preview, just the mystery of what you might have caught. Days later, you'd pick up an envelope of glossy prints, flipping through them with excitement and surprise. Some photos were perfect, others blurry, but each one was real. You didn't take pictures to post, you took them to remember. The sound of film advancing, the flash's bright pop, the smell of the paper, all of it made memories tangible. And just like those pictures, music back then was something you collected, cherished, and carried with you everywhere you went. In the 90s, life felt more attainable. A single job could support a family, and college tuition did not require a lifetime of debt. The dream of owning a home, raising children, or taking a vacation felt real. People lived within their means, and the stress of survival did not drown out the joy of living. There was room for family dinners, community events, and small celebrations. The pace of life was steady, not frantic. You saved for what you wanted, and patience made every reward feel earned. Education was accessible, and hope felt tangible. There was security in simplicity, and time seemed to stretch further. It was not about luxury, it was about balance. And in that balance, people had time for each other. But perhaps what truly made life so special back then was not the cost of living. It was how much of life was lived in person. Only in the 1970s could something as absurd as streaking become a national craze. It started as a college prank, then spread across the country faster than anyone wearing clothes could run. People dashed through public events, concerts, and even live television broadcasts, completely naked. All for laughs and attention. News outlets covered it, crowds cheered, and the police could barely keep up. It was weird, rebellious, and somehow celebrated. Streaking symbolized the carefree, rule-breaking spirit of the decade. It was about having fun, shocking the establishment, and not taking life too seriously. While it seems ridiculous now, back then, it was all part of the 1970s charm, bold, bizarre, and unforgettable. But for those who preferred their fun with a little more fabric, and maybe a touch of childhood nostalgia, the next great symbol of the era had two wheels, a long seat, and endless summer memories: the banana seat bicycle. The sound of your mom calling your name from the porch could stop time. No phone, no text, just that familiar voice cutting through the air, echoing down the street. It meant dinner was ready, or maybe you'd stayed out a little too long. Sometimes it was soft, sometimes sharp, but it always meant home. Every kid knew that call, the mix of love and warning in a single word. It was the sound that ended games, the one rule that needed no reminder. You'd race home, out of breath, shoes muddy, heart full. And when you stepped through the door, the world slowed down again. There were no screens waiting, only the evening glow of television, where family and stories came to life together. keep on truckin'. It was more than a phrase. It was an attitude. Originating from a comic strip by Robert Crumb, the slogan became a cultural anthem for staying positive and moving forward, no matter what. Soon it was everywhere, printed on t-shirts, posters, and bumper stickers, usually paired with that famous image of a man taking a giant, exaggerated stride. It captured the carefree, optimistic spirit of the 1970s perfectly. People loved it because it felt good to say, and even better to wear. It was a reminder to roll with the punches and keep groovin' through life. You could spot keep on truckin' gear at concerts, gas stations, or high school hallways. It became part of the visual language of the decade. Simple, silly, and endlessly cheerful. And speaking of visual language, nothing summed up 1970s taste and home design quite like those bold, unforgettable colors, avocado green and mustard yellow. Beepers and pagers were the ultimate sign that you were connected, but still free. You could be reached, but not controlled. The small buzz or simple beep carried importance, a message from someone who needed you, but could not instantly reach you. You would find a payphone, call back, and talk for real. Those tiny screens carried big meanings, a code from a friend, a number from your crush, or a simple 911 that made your heart race. They were compact, reliable, and oddly personal. The pager made you feel important, but it never interrupted the moment you were in. Technology was useful, not overpowering. You still looked around, saw faces, and lived fully. And when you finally had time to relax, there was one ritual that everyone shared: a trip to the local video store, where stories waited behind every plastic case. The 8-track tape was a marvel of convenience until it wasn't. It promised portable music long before digital playlists or streaming existed. You could play your favorite albums in the car, on the go, or at home with a satisfying click. But there was one hilarious flaw. Right when you were lost in the music, the track would abruptly switch in the middle of a song. No warning, no fade, just a clunking sound and silence before it started again. Still, 8 tracks were beloved. People proudly carried them in plastic cases, flipping through collections like prized treasures. The sound quality was imperfect, the design bulky, but it did not matter. It was music freedom, 1970s style. You could not have a road trip or a party without one. It was technology's first awkward step into the future. And while music filled the air, the 1970s also brought something equally cheesy, literally. The next trend was both ridiculous and delicious: canned cheese. Family time meant gathering around one screen, not staring at 5 different ones. You didn't scroll or multitask. You watched together. The television glowed, laughter filled the room, and arguments over the remote were half the fun. Shows had schedules, and everyone knew them. You didn't record episodes. You planned your night around them. Commercials were breaks to grab snacks or talk about what just happened. It was simple, shared, and warm. Those nights built connection, not through messages, but through moments. And when the final credits rolled, you didn't open a browser. You reached for the next kind of entertainment, the kind that came printed in ink and smelled like imagination. Tamagotchis and digital pets were tiny windows into responsibility. They beeped, blinked, and demanded your care. You fed them, cleaned up after them, and panicked when they flashed their sad little faces. It was not just a toy. It was a relationship. Every beep during class felt like a secret mission. You checked on it between homework and dinner, proud when it survived another day. Kids compared their pets, swapped tips, and formed friendships through shared care and competition. It was a simple digital world, but it felt real. Tamagotchis taught us about patience, empathy, and loss, because eventually, every digital pet met its end. But even that sadness carried warmth, a reminder that we cared. And that sense of discovery, that early touch of technology, came from something much bigger, a creation that would soon change how the entire planet connected. If you lived through the 1970s, you probably remember the sound of wheels on a polished floor, flashing lights bouncing off disco balls, and music that made you move whether you could skate or not. Roller disco was the ultimate mix of athletic chaos and glittering fun. Picture people wearing tight shorts, sequined tops, and knee-high socks, gliding in circles to Donna Summer or the Bee Gees. Some skaters were graceful, spinning and dancing with perfect rhythm. Others clung to the wall, praying not to fall during "Stayin' Alive." But that was the beauty of roller disco. Nobody cared. It was all about energy, laughter, and a little friendly show-off. Rinks became social hubs where teenagers met, couples danced, and fashion pushed every possible boundary. There was something electric about those nights, the blend of music, movement, and madness. And while people were grooving on skates, a new trend was sweeping across the highways, one that turned everyday drivers into talkative truckers. Get ready to tune in to the CB radio craze. There was a time when getting lost was part of the adventure. You didn't have a glowing map in your pocket or a robotic voice telling you where to turn. You relied on printed maps, street signs, or the kindness of strangers at gas stations. Sometimes you'd take a wrong turn, and instead of panic, there was curiosity, discovering new roads, small diners, or quiet towns you never planned to see. Getting lost taught patience, direction, and a quiet kind of courage. It reminded you that the journey could be just as important as the destination. And when you finally did find your way, there was no recalculating, just a smile and a story to tell. But while adults found their way through maps, kids found their way through something far simpler. The art of knocking on a friend's door. Friendship used to start with a knock. No texts, no notifications, just the sound of your hand tapping on a wooden door. You never knew if your friend was home, but that uncertainty made it exciting. You'd wait, shifting from foot to foot, hoping they'd come running out with a grin. If they weren't there, you'd check the park, the corner store, or the basketball court. And somehow, you always found them. Television in the 90s was not just something to watch, it was something to feel. Every night, familiar characters filled our homes and shaped our lives. Friends made us dream of city life and endless laughter. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air brought joy, rhythm, and heart into every living room. Sitcoms had warmth, humor, and lessons wrapped in 22 minutes of comfort. The laugh tracks, the catchy theme songs, the cliffhangers that made you rush home the next day. They became a part of our daily rhythm. These shows were not background noise. They were our companions. Families gathered around a single screen, sharing popcorn, jokes, and stories that became woven into our own. The 90s gave us characters who felt like friends, and moments that still echo whenever we hear those opening songs. And when Saturday morning arrived, the screen belonged to someone else entirely. The kids who ruled the house for a few precious hours. Every 1970s home had one thing in common: shag carpeting. It was thick, colorful, and felt like walking on a fuzzy forest floor. Homeowners loved it because it looked luxurious, at least until it started swallowing everything in sight. Socks disappeared, toys vanished, even small pets seemed to sink into its depths. The longer the shag, the more fashionable your living room was. Cleaning it was a nightmare, but that was a small price to pay for being stylish. The colors were bold and wild, deep oranges, avocado greens, mustard yellows, turning every home into a psychedelic dream. People sat, lay, and even picnicked on it. It was soft, strange, and totally 1970s. Looking back, it is hard not to laugh at how proudly people flaunted carpets that looked like wild animal fur. And when you wanted to relax and stare at something mesmerizing in your shag-covered home, you turned to another glowing classic: the lava lamp. It was a rhythm of childhood that needed no app, no schedule, and no battery life. Life was timed by light, not alarms. And when you got home, your next adventure was waiting, right on the living room screen. Saturday mornings meant cartoons. No streaming, no skipping intros, just pure excitement. You'd wake up early, bowl of cereal in hand, waiting for your favorite show to start. The jingles, the commercials, the cliffhangers. They were all part of the magic. Missing an episode meant waiting a whole week to find out what happened next. It taught patience and anticipation, feelings that don't exist in a world of instant replay. Saturday mornings were sacred, a ritual shared by millions of kids across the world. And once the cartoons ended, you didn't scroll. You went outside, where the next chapter of the day was waiting in the sun. The 1970s turned rope into art. Macramé became a national obsession. If it could be knotted, it could be decorated. Living rooms overflowed with plant hangers, curtains, lampshades, and wall hangings, all lovingly tied by hand. The beauty of macramé was that anyone could do it. All you needed was rope, patience, and time. And people had plenty of that. The results were both beautiful and hilarious. Some designs looked elegant and natural, while others looked like tangled fishing nets. Every home seemed to have one corner dedicated to these creations, especially for hanging spider plants. The craft fairs were filled with them, and entire magazines taught new patterns every month. It was creative, messy, and deeply 1970s. There was something peaceful about making something by hand, even if it never quite turned out right. And speaking of trends everyone tried to copy, nothing defined 1970s beauty like one particular hairstyle, the Farrah Fawcett feathered look. The birth of the World Wide Web was the moment the future began. For the first time, people could connect across oceans without leaving their homes. It started quietly. Static pages filled with blinking text, colorful backgrounds, and simple graphics. Yet it was mesmerizing. You could search for anything, visit digital spaces, and feel the vastness of a new world forming before your eyes. The internet was slow, but every click carried weight. Chat rooms, online journals, and personal websites became the new frontiers of human curiosity. It was a world without limits, built on imagination and endless potential. And as we began exploring this frontier, we found new ways to talk, share, and stay connected. From this revolution came the next chapter, one that would define how friendships and conversations evolved for an entire generation. Everyone in the 1970s wanted to know what their mood looked like, and the mood ring promised to tell them. The idea was simple. Your body heat would supposedly change the color of the ring, revealing how you felt. Blue meant calm, green meant relaxed, and black meant, well, probably that you were just cold. Most of the time, they turned a dull brownish shade that looked more confused than emotional. Still, people wore them proudly, comparing colors and pretending the science was real. It was harmless fun, and it made you feel like your jewelry had magical powers. Teenagers traded them, couples matched them, and everyone pretended not to be disappointed when it stayed the same color all day. The mood ring craze faded, but it left behind the kind of innocent charm only the 1970s could produce. And for those who wanted to take relaxation even further, the next trend looked amazing in magazines, but turned out to be a total nightmare in real life: the legendary waterbed. Books and magazines were portals. You didn't scroll for stories, you held them. The pages were soft, the corners folded, the covers worn with time. You learned to travel through words, not Wi-Fi. Magazines gave you glimpses of music, fashion, and faraway worlds that felt just out of reach. Books made silence exciting. They were companions on rainy days or late at night under a flashlight when you were supposed to be asleep. Every library card felt like a key to endless adventure. And when you weren't lost in pages, you were creating stories of your own, drawn, taped, or recorded one moment at a time. Compact discs and mixtapes were the heartbeat of the 90s. Every song you loved lived inside a jewel case or a cassette with handwritten labels. Making a mixtape was an art, carefully choosing each song, timing the record button perfectly, and decorating the cover with doodles or messages. A single tape could hold your emotions, your friendships, or your secret crush. Compact discs brought cleaner sound and shiny promise. But mixtapes carried your soul. You listened to them on your Walkman, rewinding favorite tracks over and over until the tape grew thin. Music was shared, gifted, and treasured, not streamed or skipped. It connected people without screens or algorithms, just rhythm, feeling, and the crackle between songs. You carried your collection proudly, like badges of identity. And just as those melodies filled your headphones, another kind of magic filled arenas and televisions. The unforgettable era of sports legends who seemed larger than life. Few things captured the groovy vibe of the 1970s better than the lava lamp. They were not just decorations, they were experiences. Turn one on, and you could watch for hours as glowing blobs of wax floated up and down inside colorful liquid, creating a hypnotic dance of light and motion. Every teenager wanted one on their nightstand, and every adult pretended they bought it for the kids. It was the kind of simple entertainment that somehow never got boring. The slow, bubbling rhythm set the perfect mood for listening to records, relaxing after work, or just spacing out completely. The soft glow filled rooms with a cozy, dreamy vibe until the lamp overheated and started looking like a science experiment gone wrong. Still, nothing says 1970s living room quite like that groovy little lamp. And while lava lamps lit up the rooms, something even shinier was about to light up the dance floors. The rise of the unforgettable leisure suit. The banana seat bicycle was the ultimate ride for every kid in the 1970s. With its long, curved seat and high-rise handlebars, it looked fast, even when standing still. Riding one made you feel like the coolest kid on the block, even if it meant sore legs and an aching back after a few minutes. These bikes came in wild colors: bright reds, yellows, and sparkling blues, often decorated with streamers on the handles and sometimes even a basket in front. The seat could fit two if you were brave enough, though the second rider usually paid the price in bruises. Kids raced down the street, popping wheelies and pretending they were in motorcycle gangs. It was freedom on two wheels, stylish, awkward, and totally unforgettable. And while kids were busy perfecting their bike tricks, teenagers were busy perfecting their hair. The next trend made everyone look like a rock star, or sometimes a poodle, the Shag hairstyle. Going outside was not a suggestion. It was life. The world beyond your doorstep was your playground. You climbed trees, rode bikes, and scraped your knees without fear. You invented games from nothing, built forts from scraps, and spent entire afternoons chasing the fading light. The air smelled of grass, freedom, and possibility. You didn't need likes or followers to feel seen. You just needed friends and imagination. Every day was an adventure written by you. And as dusk settled in, the sound that brought everyone home wasn't a phone notification. It was something far more familiar and far more human. The mall was the heart of the 90s. It was more than a shopping center. It was a meeting place, a runway, and a world of possibility under one roof. You could hear the echo of footsteps blending with music from the record store, the smell of soft pretzels mixed with the scent of new sneakers. Teens walked in groups, carrying shopping bags like trophies, stopping by the arcade or food court just to linger. There was no need for a plan. You just showed up, and everyone you knew seemed to be there. The mall was freedom, air-conditioned, brightly lit, and full of connection. It was where first crushes happened, where style was discovered, and where friendships grew stronger over slices of pizza and laughter that lasted for hours. Every weekend felt like an event. And when the evening finally ended, you went home, turned on the television, and found comfort in the shows that made every family feel closer. The 1970s turned fashion into a balancing act, literally. Platform shoes made people feel like rock stars, but they also made walking a daily survival challenge. Men and women alike strapped on shoes with heels thick enough to qualify as small furniture. Every step came with a wobble, every dance, move a risk. Yet the higher the shoe, the higher your confidence soared. People strutted through malls, discos, and sidewalks like they owned the decade. These shoes could make anyone 3 inches taller and twice as clumsy. More than a few ankles were sacrificed to the fashion gods. Still, there was something undeniably fun about them. The bright colors, glitter finishes, and outrageous designs made them impossible to ignore. You were not just walking, you were performing. And even if you fell, at least you fell in style. But for those who wanted something less dangerous and more absurdly simple, the next fad proved that you did not need height, skill, or even effort to be trendy. Just a rock. Friendships were built on presence, not profiles. Every hangout was spontaneous, every conversation unfiltered. It was human connection in its purest form, unpredictable and real. And when the day ended, there was only one thing left to do: race home before the streetlights came on. Streetlights were the silent curfew every kid understood. They flickered on as the sky turned orange, and that was your signal. One last game, one last laugh, before sprinting home. There were no phone calls or reminders, just instinct and trust. Parents didn't track your location. They trusted you'd be back when the lights did their job. That glow meant safety, warmth, and the quiet end of another perfect day. It sounds like a joke, but in the 1970s, people actually bought rocks and called them pets. No feeding, no walking, no mess. Just a plain rock sitting in a cardboard box with air holes, complete with a manual on how to care for it. The pet rock was one of the funniest and most brilliant fads in history. Gary Dahl, the man behind it, made millions selling something you could literally find in your backyard. Yet people loved it. It became a conversation piece, a gag gift, and somehow a pop culture icon. Every home had one sitting proudly on a shelf, reminding everyone how delightfully strange the decade could be. It was the kind of humor only the 1970s could pull off, a mix of creativity, silliness, and consumer magic. And while your rock might not have barked or purred, it certainly sparked laughter. But if you thought a pet rock was strange, wait until you remember what people willingly walked barefoot on in their own homes. Shag carpeting. The IM and MSN Messenger were the first true doorways into digital friendship. After school, you would rush home, turn on the family computer, and wait through the familiar sounds of connection. When your screen finally loaded, there they were, your friends' usernames glowing like tiny lights in the night. Conversations were simple, but thrilling. Every new message made your heart race, and when someone special signed on, you could feel the excitement even through the screen. You waited for the familiar chime, typed carefully, and watched words appear in real time. It was friendship in its purest digital form, where every hello felt like a moment shared across space. There were no pictures, no filters, only words and emotion. Late-night chats turned strangers into best friends and crushes into love stories that lived inside glowing monitors. These small exchanges built bonds that lasted far beyond the log-off sound. And while we spent evenings talking online, our mornings belonged to something timeless. The joy of waking up to animated worlds that defined an entire generation. Nothing says 1970s quite like canned cheese. It was the decade when convenience ruled the kitchen. And what could be more convenient than cheese that sprayed straight from a can? With just one push of a nozzle, you could cover crackers, chips, or even celery with an orange, foamy masterpiece. Kids loved it, adults served it proudly at parties, and no one questioned what was actually in it. It tasted strangely artificial, yet somehow addictive. The kind of snack that made you go back for more, even while wondering why. Canned cheese became a symbol of mid-century food innovation, a mix of creativity and questionable nutrition. It made every gathering easier, messier, and somehow more fun. But while people were spraying cheese onto everything in sight, the real challenge was trying to make their televisions actually work. Because in the next funny memory from the 1970s, you might need to climb onto the roof to get a signal. MTV in the 90s was not just a channel, it was a universe. It played the soundtrack of the decade, 24 hours a day. From music videos that felt like short films to interviews that made stars seem human, MTV turned music into culture. You waited for your favorite song to appear or stayed up late for Total Request Live. The hosts were icons, the countdowns were events, and the visuals defined entire styles. Every genre had a home there: rock, pop, hip-hop, and everything in between. Music videos were not background noise, they were art. MTV shaped trends, introduced movements, and gave every teenager a window into the world of sound and style. It was a community that brought everyone together through rhythm and screen light. And just as the channel filled our homes with energy, the gadgets we carried reminded us that technology could still be simple. And sometimes that was what made it so exciting. The 90s spoke its own language. Every word carried attitude, humor, and personality. We said things were rad, dope, or all that. We called friends homies, and everything cool was fat. Slang united us, a playful code that made conversation feel alive. Words from hip-hop, television, and youth culture mixed into a dialect of confidence and fun. It was expressive, bold, and never shy. The way we spoke defined who we were: carefree, creative, and endlessly original. Even decades later, some phrases still slip into our speech like old songs returning to memory. The language of the 90s was more than words. It was identity. And that identity came from living in a world that felt perfectly balanced, caught between the analog warmth of yesterday and the digital spark of tomorrow. The leisure suit, the official uniform of the 1970s. Made from shiny polyester that could probably stop a bullet, these suits were everywhere. Men wore them to work, to parties, and to the dance floor, always unbuttoning their shirts just enough to show off some chest hair and a gold chain. The louder the color, the bolder the statement. Powder blue, lime green, mustard yellow. It was fashion chaos, and everyone loved it. These suits did not breathe, they did not stretch, and they definitely did not move well. But that did not matter. You could walk into any disco, and the lights would bounce off your outfit like a mirror ball. Every photo from the decade looks like a polyester parade. Still, the leisure suit symbolized confidence and freedom. The idea that style should be fun, even if it was questionable. And speaking of questionable, there was another 1970s creation that promised to reveal your emotions, but usually just turned one unflattering color: the mood ring. Hip-hop in the 90s was not just music, it was storytelling, revolution, and identity all rolled into one. Artists like Tupac, Biggie, and Nas brought truth to the microphone, painting vivid pictures of life, struggle, and pride. Every lyric carried weight, every beat carried heart. It was the golden age of hip-hop, when words had power and flow was art. The music pulsed through city blocks, boom boxes, and car stereos, shaping the rhythm of an entire generation. It was a movement built on honesty, courage, and creativity. You could not just listen to it, you felt it. The beats became anthems of confidence, unity, and survival. It gave young people across the world a voice, proving that art could change how people think and live. And while hip-hop ruled the streets, everyday life also felt balanced. Because back then, the cost of living and learning was something almost anyone could manage. The 1970s belonged to disco, and nothing captured that glittering energy quite like the disco ball. Every party, from packed nightclubs to basement hangouts, had one. It was the heartbeat of the era, a spinning globe of mirrored light that transformed any dull room into a dance paradise. When the light hit it just right, reflections danced across the walls, and suddenly, everyone looked like a superstar. Couples twirled, friends laughed, and even the most reluctant dancers found themselves moving to the beat. Disco balls were more than decorations. They were a mood, a symbol of joy, freedom, and endless fun. Some people even hung smaller ones in their cars, because why limit the magic to nightclubs? It was sparkle, rhythm, and optimism all rolled into one shiny sphere. But as wild as the dance floor got, the decade also saw one of the strangest public sports ever invented. A trend where people took the phrase, letting it all hang out, a little too seriously. Yes, it is time to talk about the streaking fad. Long before streaming services and satellite dishes, there were gigantic TV antennas. These towering metal contraptions sat proudly on rooftops, reaching for the sky like alien beacons. Families relied on them for their precious 3 or 4 television channels, but they came with one big catch. They needed constant adjustment. If the picture started to flicker, someone, usually Dad, had to run outside and twist the antenna while another person inside yelled, "A little to the left!" The process could take ages, but when the picture finally cleared, everyone cheered like they had just landed on the moon. It was teamwork, frustration, and laughter rolled into one. Every household had their own ritual for fixing the signal, and it was often more entertaining than the show itself. But when the TV was finally working, it was time for something a bit more physical. A bright orange toy that had kids bouncing all over the place. The 90s exploded with a sound that changed everything. The gritty voice of grunge and the raw heart of alternative rock. From the moment Nirvana's guitars tore through the air, music no longer sounded polished or distant. It was real, messy, and emotional. Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Smashing Pumpkins turned pain into poetry. The flannel shirts, the unkempt hair, the dimly lit clubs, they were not about fashion. They were rebellion. Every chord spoke to a generation that wanted truth instead of glamour. The lyrics told stories of confusion, freedom, and identity in a world that was just beginning to speed up. Grunge was not just a sound. It was an attitude, one that lived in every garage band and every teenager who wanted to be heard. But while rock ruled the airwaves, another force was rising from the streets. Rhythm, poetry, and a voice for those who had long been unheard. Pop music in the 90s was unstoppable. It was everywhere, in cars, malls, bedrooms, and school dances. The Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Spice Girls, and NSYNC turned radio into rhythm and teenage dreams into anthems. Every song was catchy, every lyric unforgettable. You memorized dance moves, decorated walls with posters, and sang into hairbrushes like microphones. Pop was joy, bright, youthful, and unapologetically fun. It celebrated friendship, love, and energy. Concerts became cultural events, and music videos on MTV were cinematic experiences. The world moved to the same beat, no matter where you were. Pop brought color to every moment, but it also gave birth to something else. The language, the expressions, and the slang that made the 90s truly its own. If you stepped into a 1970s kitchen, you probably thought you had walked into a salad. Everything was avocado green or mustard yellow. Appliances, countertops, even the refrigerator. These colors were everywhere, like nature had invaded interior design. People genuinely believed it looked modern and sophisticated. Today, it feels more like a fever dream. Matching green ovens, yellow sinks, patterned wallpaper, and shag carpets. It was a full sensory experience. Homes looked warm and cheerful, sure, but they also looked like the inside of a bowl of guacamole. It is funny now to think how proudly people showed off those colors, hosting dinner parties surrounded by avocado everything. But back then, it was the height of style, cozy, earthy, and alive. And if you wanted to take that warmth from the kitchen to the dance floor, all you needed was one shining centerpiece spinning above your head, the iconic disco ball. If this brought back your favorite 80s toy, share it in the comments. And if you love remembering the best of the past, like the video and subscribe so we can keep reliving it together.